What's up, guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Void Horror Podcast. My name is Alex, and today we're going to be doing a spoiler-free review of Demonic, a new movie by Neil Blomkamp, by the way. Let's check it out. So Demonic has actually flown quite under the radar for something as big as Neil Blomkamp. Now, I know Elysium didn't do all that well for a lot of people, and it cost a lot of money, and maybe that's why he put out all those shorts and everything like that to show him that he's got a lot of really great ideas, even though I don't think any of them actually got greenlit for like a feature film, but there was a couple in there that I was like, let's do it. I want to watch this. So we got Neil Blomkamp, who writes and directs on this picture. He is, of course, known for doing sci-fi, so of course there is an element of sci-fi locked into this horror movie. Only this time, it's demons. So what is Demonic? It's about a young woman who has come to terms with her mother. They have become estranged. Her mother was put away in a prison for doing some pretty heinous things, and she's come to terms with it and just kind of forgotten about her until one day somebody contacts her saying, your mom's in a coma and they're doing all kinds of weird experiments on her to try to help her. You may want to go check it out. And when she does, she goes into a sort of simulation. If you've seen the trailer, she goes into a simulation inside the mind of her mother. That's all I'll say from here on out. Some bad things happen as a result of that, and of course it gets rather demonic. Neil also had a cast that was pretty decent. Carly Pope, she was in Elysium, and she's not, I wouldn't say she's a bad actress by any means, but here she just felt a little stale other than the parts where she was actually getting frightened and scared. She did an amazing job on that. But the more subtle stuff with the family, and I just didn't really, I expected more. It's not that she's bad. We also get Michael J. Rogers, who, if you've seen Beyond the Black Rainbow, does an amazing job, and there's no doubt why they picked him for this role. I feel like he could have gotten a little bit more screen time in this movie. I won't say how. I was less impressed with this movie than I thought I was going to be. So I would definitely taper back your expectations on this one. It is probably a smaller budget than Neil's probably used to having, which isn't always a bad thing, but I expected a little bit more of an art direction with this movie. You see movies like The Cell, and you see how artistic and like fashionable it was, and how crazy it gets, and just like how dreamy, sort of like fever dreamish that you can get in a movie about a woman going into the mind of a serial killer, which is pretty insane and amazing and kind of an underrated film for its time. This is a little different, and it does have similar things as The Cell, so I won't compare it 100%, and I have not checked any reviews on it, but I guarantee you people are going to say The Cell. Cut that back a little bit, your expectations on The Cell, because I'm sure that hyped up a bunch of people, and just kind of expect a regular sort of science fiction horror movie about demons. It is a supernatural film, and there are some moments in the film that were actually pretty cool, and even towards the end that I thought were really good, but there was a really long section that just kind of bored me a little bit. Something I didn't like about this movie, unfortunately, and I still think Neil Blomkamp is a genius, but the characters really just did not seem that interesting. They weren't the worst thing I've seen, but they were just kind of bland. I feel like it would have been infinitely better if we had seen some of the struggles that some of these characters go through in order to better understand their perception of what is happening to them and what is going on in the movie. And at no point did I really care that much about anyone on the screen. Now, there are some things in the movie that I thought were kind of cool, some things that got a little hokey as far as like, how they deal with this situation. But there is, that overwhelming science fiction-y kind of thing going on in this film that is done to a really great score, by the way. The score in this film, I thought, was one of the best things. I really enjoyed it. It fit the tone of the horror and the sci-fi perfectly, and I would love to see more. Which the music for this movie was done by Ola Strand, who has done a lot of work on some Tom Clancy games, and he did a great job. Like, I really enjoyed that. There were some things in the movie that I thought was really interesting lore-wise when it comes to demons and how we typically ingest them in a supernatural film. There are some twists there and little touches that they do, and a couple nuanced things that they do to the characters to kind of throw you off the scent that I thought were actually pretty well done. I don't think that Neil Blomkamp is a bad writer by any means, but I just feel like the characters just needed a little bit more polish, a little bit more time, and we're talking about a movie that is an hour and 44 minutes long, so it's not like they didn't have the time. They probably just didn't add the parts that would have made that stand out for me in particular. But for most people who are going into this film looking for like a supernatural film, I think you'll get a moderate to above average experience. I think there are some good things in the film that I think most people will enjoy, but they'll also find a little over the same beaten path that we've kind of been before, sprinkled with a couple of different things that you haven't seen in a movie before. The effects in this movie were, of course, hands down really good, and there were some pretty freaky moments, but for the most part, it was all kind of tame and not as stylistic as I had hoped. That's no knock against Neil, by the way, because he's got an excellent talent, and I would love to see him do more horror movies, so I hope that whatever this outcome comes for this movie and what people think about it, I hope he considers coming back to the darker side and doing more horror, because I think that he could do something that would be pretty awesome. But yeah, ultimately, this is a movie that I wished would be better. I would probably say it's about a 6, maybe a 6.5 out of 10. Definitely not a bad watch, but it's not going to make everybody happy. I think with the name Neil Blomkamp attached to anything, the expectation levels are going to be very high, and if you can kind of lower them, you will go into probably a better experience of this movie overall. But it isn't bad. There are some cool things that they do in this film, and I did appreciate some of those changes that they did and the lore that we are used to with demonology. So it was kind of interesting to see those in a new movie. Ultimately, it is just above average, and you know, it may be something you might want to wait to rent, but I don't think he's done yet. But what did you guys think? Did you see the movie yet? Did you rent it? Are you going to wait to watch it on streaming services? Are you excited and you just can't wait? I would love to hear what you think in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this review, please, of course, always hit the like and subscribe button, and even that little bell thing to let you know when I have a new video up. But other than that, thanks for stopping by, and as always, long live the boys.